Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the No Rules, Just Vibes podcast. I'm your host, Maya Angel, and thank you guys so much for tuning in another week. I have a very, very, very special guest here today. Her name is Averie, and I'm so fortunate to have her here on today's episode. And so I'm going to give her a minute just to briefly introduce herself. So, Averie, tell the people how dope you are,
Oh
period.
my gosh. Hey y'all. So awesome to be here, Maya. Thank you for this amazing opportunity. I am a faithful listener of the No Rules Just Vibe podcast, so it feels good to just be, among family. Like we're here, we're kicking it. As Maya said, my name is Averie. I have known Maya since I was in kindergarten, so expect the vibe to be as authentic as it always is, because we are well into our 20s and have been doing this for a long time. But I am an attorney here in Birmingham. I also am working on a couple of projects on my own on the side. I have an amazing life, right now. I'm just living the dream. I went to Alabama for undergrad and for grad school, worked for a couple of years, then went to Cumberland for law school, started working as an attorney. And right now we're just out here, we're kicking it. It's no rules, it's just vibes.
Period. And y'all, she's been super humble. Averie is lit. Like, if anybody, like, she's goals, period. Like, that's the only way that I can say it. But yeah, I'm so glad to have her on the show. Averie is my best friend. Like she said, we've known each other literally since kindergarten, and we've been locked in ever since. And so this is very, very special to have her here on the show for me. And we're going to talk about something that we've talked about before, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth because I think 2020 was definitely a year of self-reflection. And it's kind of where my mindset is now as we are entering into 2021. And with that being said, today's topic is going to be navigating life with and without deadlines.
What?
Right. And so I talked about this on my Instagram story a while back, and I just got so much positive feedback. And people wanted me to talk about it and explain what I mean about navigating life with and without deadlines, because so many people, and this is as it relates to your life goals. So many people think that putting a timetable or a deadline on your life goals is automatically unhealthy. And so I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree. And Averie does too. So that's what we kind of want to talk about today. And so I guess just as a starting point, what do you believe that people should give themselves a timetable or a deadline as it relates to their goals, or no? And when I say life goals, I mean, I'm gonna be a millionaire by 30. I'm gonna be married by this day. I'm gonna have kids by this day. I'm gonna lose weight by this day. I'm going to accomplish this thing by this day. Do you think that's healthy or unhealthy? And do you think people should or shouldn't do that?
Honestly, I think both, if we're going to be honest about it. I think there are two types of life goals: the goals that you can control and the goals that you cannot control. For
Period.
example, you cannot control when you're going to get married. As shocking as that may be in 2021, people think that they can just pick a date and whenever you're going to meet a person, it's just going to be the thing. We know people personally who, like, you can't pick a date of when you're going to have kids. You don't know what that process is going to be like. You may get a surprise on both sides of that fertility spectrum. However, I do think that there are some goals that you can kind of like write out and put down and figure out, okay, I'm going to get this degree. I'm going to try to obtain this type of job. And a lot of that is in your control. It's up to you to decide to go to school. It's up to you to put in that work and apply for those jobs. And that does need a deadline if you want to do it. I know for me personally, I remember in, was it 2012? Yeah, I think it was in 2012. We were still at Bama. I was an RA. And I had heard some podcast or some, message about writing it down, just like write down your goals. And it comes out of scripture where it says to write down the vision, make it plain. And so I wrote out 5 things that I wanted to do within the next couple of years. And I think it was like my 10-year, 5-year like snapshot. So the first one was I wanted to graduate from Alabama early with Latin honors. The second one was I wanted to get a master's degree within 1 year. The third was I wanted to obtain a 6-figure job by the time I was 30. The fourth was I wanted to start my business. And the fifth, which is the one I'm kind of talking about, is I wanted to marry a man of God that loved God more than he loved me. Right. The fifth one really couldn't control, but I got a little tidbit for you. So that first one that I wrote down of I wanted to graduate from Alabama early and with Latin honors, I graduated in 3 years flat, magna cum laude. And I think having that on my little, board in my room kept me motivated on those late nights studying, deciding to take the extra class, deciding to load up on hours of just like putting it in front of you because I could control that, right? I could control, what classes I was going to take or how I was going to function my schedule. I could not control my dad getting sick when I was in college. I could not control, certain classes being offered or not being offered, but I did everything in my power to make that happen. And because that was at my forefront of my mind, boom, check it off.
Period.
And then as far as like getting my master's degree, most master's programs are 2 years. And I just decided, no, I'm tired of school. I done bust my butt for the last 3 years to go school year round, no summers off, no winter breaks off. I'm going to try to, compound classes and get it done. Boom, check, got that done. And like, that's not in a braggadocious type of way, but just in okay, this is what I can control. I can control whether or not I want to take a full load of classes or whether or not I want to kind of coast through. That's something that I made a decision for. Now, the third one, getting 6 figures before I was 30, child, around 20.
I know.
that didn't look so grand, so bright. Like, so when I got my master's degree, my first job out of school, I was making in the 30s, and I wasn't struggling. I learned how to budget. I was still tithing. I was still giving. I was still going to brunch, but I knew that I had a very strict means in order to live in. And, statistics show that if you're making over $30,000 a year, you're kind of doing pretty good in America. However, I knew that wasn't what I wanted. And so when I was 2 years into my job, I want to say that was my 25th birthday that we went to DC. So
yes, I believe so.
I think so. Maybe 24, 25. I think it was 25. It was 25. I'm 25 years old and I have quit my job and decided to go back to school, and I'm going to law school. At this point, my family thinks that I'm just a glutton for punishment, that I'm a professional student. They just can't figure out, okay, so you had a job, you quit your job and your retirement and like your benefits and everything, and you finna move back home to go to law school. And not just any law school, you're gonna go to a private law school, and that's the hefty penny attached to it. How is that gonna work? And so for those 3 years in that time frame, I'm in school, I'm not working. I am back to the basics of, hey, can I get some money for gas? Just being honest, guys. But yet, when I graduated law school, I did have that 6-figure offer on the table. Had 2 of them, actually. And so I think that, and so here I was, about to turn 28 and was actually accomplishing that third goal of, wow, I am hitting that benefit or that threshold in my income before a certain time frame. And that's what I said I wanted to do. And so that was I could control it and I couldn't control it, right? Like,
right.
I could control going to school. I can control certain job opportunities that I was going to seek out. I can control doing the work to get me there. However, on the beginning of that, I looked stupid. Like, why would you quit a job to go back to school to, do all the things that's going to take to get through school and then hope for the best on the back end of it, right? The fourth one was starting my business. That's happening this year. I've already started drafting up paperwork. Like, we don't have to do that. Like, that's just that's on me. That's one of those things that I didn't put a deadline on it, and now I'm feeling it.
Oh, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that because if don't nobody else know, I know.
And then the fifth one was to marry somebody, and it's crazy. I kind of am really transparent. I'm an open book, so I have no problem telling this to your listeners and your viewers. But I think that I'm a person of faith. And so I think that God is very strategic in the fact that all of my goals are being checked off, but they're being checked off in order. When I wrote out those goals, I was in a season of prayer and fasting, which I am now. And so to understand that there was an order in that kind of hierarchy of what was important first, like getting the education, securing the job, getting my purpose. Like some stuff needs to be attached to my maiden name, that I did that before the man, right? Okay.
I'm listening. I'm just listening. Keep going.
and now, so I'm kind of watching it and I'm like, I've got check, check, check. And I'm not saying that it's a manipulative type of thing, but I do think that after I go ahead and say yes on what I can control on number 4, what I can't control in number 5 is going to just line up. And I already see it happening. I see it coming. You know, I'm dating an amazing guy. And it just makes sense that God is a God of order and he's not a God of confusion. And so if he's ordering my steps, the problem is everybody wants to say, God, order my steps, but they don't want to move their feet, me included.
Child.
So it was cool with order my steps with school because that was like an easy thing to do. We've been in school since we were 4, 5, you know, that's just another thing to do. But as far as getting my butt up, filing the paperwork, carving out the time to say like, hey, this is what I want to do for my business, and being structured and intentional and compartmentalizing all of the things, that is going to take an extra level of discipline that a deadline wasn't attached to, but a deadline could help me get there. Right?
I think that is so very important when we're talking about deadlines. And I actually did not think about that before we talked about this. So I'm over here just blown away. Like, yes, get out of my business, period. So
love you.
but yes, keep going.
No, but I think it's just something that when you're asked the question of whether or not it's healthy to set deadlines or not to set deadlines, I think there is a certain amount of self-discipline and accountability that a deadline will bring you, right? But I also think there's a negative point to when you don't meet that deadline by a certain time, of beating yourself up and feeling like you haven't accomplished something as if, you know, it's over.
Right.
So, for example, one of my ever reoccurring deadlines, you know, is January. Sis trying to lose weight. And there wasn't a deadline attached to it, right? And kind of figuring out, okay, how do I manage my time? How do I manage my eating? How do I manage my workout schedule in order to obtain this goal to the best of my ability to control it? On the flip side, understanding that, you know, just because you make a plan to lose 30 pounds within 6 months, weight fluctuates. You know, your body can go through different changes. I just had a surgery that really affected my weight that I didn't even realize something was wrong with me. And so there's some stuff that you can't even control when it comes down to that kind of thing.
Right.
But I can control whether or not I'm going to Chick-fil-A every day when I get off work.
Or just eating out, period, versus cooking at home and things like that. And we have a very similar story because my trajectory was pretty much the same way, you know, going through college and what I wanted by a certain date. I wanted the 6 figures by 25, you know, and a lot of people like, that's unrealistic. But but I did it though. That's the thing. That's the thing. But, you know, it's thinking about, because we both went to Alabama, and thinking about that time period, I graduated with a degree in criminal justice with a minor in chemistry. And criminal justice degrees are beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But with the 6-figure goal at 25 in my head and this criminal justice degree, you know, and I'm looking at this, and every job I'm looking at that for a criminal justice degree is pretty much telling me that I need to go be a low-level police officer, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when I'm trying to align what I thought my goal was with what I was doing, you know, it wasn't adding up. Right. So with that being said, I took a step back and I was like, okay, if I want to be I want to earn 6 figures by 25, how am I going to get there? So after that, I went to well, let's go back, because while I was in school, I'm also trying to lose weight. I was if freshman 35 was a person, it was me. So I gained a drastic amount of weight in college. I got all the way up to 192, and I also graduated early. And but one thing before graduation that I wanted to do was lose weight. And so I put myself on a 5-month deadline the last semester of college, right before graduation, to lose the weight that I wanted to lose. And having that deadline, like you said, it kept me focused. It was the thing that made me get up every day and work out. Sometimes I was doing twice a day. It was the thing that made me cook at home. It was the thing that made me drink more water. Things like that. It helped me to hone in my focus, and I went from 192 to 158. Before graduation.
Sis, can we just be honest with the viewers? Like, I haven't heard 158 or seen 158 since high school.
Look, that was college, undergrad, and I've never been back. So I totally get it. But that being said, I'm graduating and I'm just like, okay, God, I want six figures by 25. And what's in front of me is not it. So I went to law school, and it was a beautiful experience.
Hold on, wait. You didn't just go to law school. Like, let's not play yourself, sis. You
What?
got a law degree and an MBA simultaneously. Okay, go ahead.
That's what I'm getting into. But law school is 3 years, and that's all I was gonna give it, 3 years. So I wanted my master's as well. And so what I did was I got my master's and my law degree in 3 years. And I graduated at 24, I believe. I graduated at 24 with 2 six-figure jobs on the table. And so those are the type of things that I feel like you can control to a certain extent, but putting myself on those deadlines was healthy and helped me direct me to where I needed to be. And so I feel like I feel both ways about it, because I do think there are some downsides to it, but I don't think that it's automatically unhealthy. I think that you can find some good and find some discipline and find things that work for you by having a deadline. So that's we both have similar experiences, and it helps that we're best friends too, because law school is hard, and just going through the whole process, even though I had myself on a deadline, that's long nights. That's putting in the work. That's putting in the time. That's not, when everybody else is going out partying, that's being at home and not, having that extra time to dedicate it, because I'm on such a deadline, or I'm on such this straight line that I'm trying to get to where I'm getting to. But at the same time, on the back end, it was worth it. So
yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times people like the idea but don't like the reality.
Right.
The idea of making six figures by 25, by 30, that sounds amazing. Like, oh, I'm gonna be in my bag. Ain't nobody gonna be able to tell me nothing, whatever. But when, you and I are both Greek, when you're not going to the probate, when you are, up at the library until midnight and it closes, and then you're going to find somewhere else to study.
Right.
And if we can just talk about even how weight affected that in that as well. I gained an excessive amount of weight between undergrad and grad school, because I put myself on such tight deadlines. So the Mountain Dews, the snacks, the up all night, not sleeping, not drinking my water, just kind of grinding and surviving mode of even this, last year, and getting sick. I realized that, I had gone through law school in 3 years, immediately went into studying for the bar, passed the bar in September. And when I found out I passed the bar, I was already working. So that there was no break, right? And so for the last year, it just had been on grind mode to the point to where my body shut down. She was like, sis, this ain't working. And I think that's a cost that that you put on one of those tight deadlines of, well, shoot, I gotta go get this paper, I gotta get this grade, or if I want a 6-figure job, that means I need to be in this kind of category of my GPA needs to be here, and so this is what I gotta do to make it happen. And people don't see that. People don't see, you pulling up at Starbucks at 5 minutes before they close, ordering a triple shot espresso because it's gonna be a long night. That's a cost that goes with that deadline too. I think though, we have to kind of play a little, your MBA can come into this, got to do a little SWOT analysis, got to figure out, okay, what's the strengths, what's the weaknesses, what's the risk, what's our benefits, what's our alternatives, what's our opportunities, what are our threats of, okay, yeah, I may be missing out on homecoming. Yeah, I may not be going to, whatever. I feel like I I put myself under a rock. For the people who listen to the show, who know us and have known us for years, they're like, Averie, we ain't seen you. You've been off social media. I was like, because I've been focused, y'all, And so because of that, there was a cost attached to it. I'm a social butterfly. And I have a whole degree in public relations, and you can't find me on social media except LinkedIn and maybe Pinterest if you got a criminal justice or stalking degree.
Look, but I think that's the harsh reality, though. I think, you do deal with those things, and that's the unhealthiness of it. I agree with that, but I also think we can't leave out the intentionality piece of combating those things. So when I say that, I mean scheduling in rest,
Yeah.
scheduling in going to brunch with your friends, scheduling in going to homecoming. If I can't go to the opening game or whatever the case may be, I may go to homecoming to offset that. So
Yeah.
I think it's you have to have a balance too, because that was the big thing for me. I'm not giving Sunday. Like, Sunday is my rest day. I don't care what has to go, unless it's just literally urgent, like life or death, which most times is not. I'm not working that day. I'm not doing anything that day. That's the day that I rest. That's the day that I do maybe some yoga, meditate, some self-care, light a candle. And I think those are the things that help you recharge and push forward, and so that you don't become overwhelmed, or you just feel the pressure of having those deadlines, or just trying to stay focused to meeting those deadlines. So just like you're on a tight schedule and you're saying, okay, I got to do this by 9 o'clock. I got to do this by 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, this afternoon. This is 5 o'clock before I go to bed. Okay, I'm scheduling in some workout time. The first thing in the morning, I'm scheduling in some prayer time with God. I'm scheduling in, I'm going to call Bae or my friends at this time. That when I was studying for the bar, I had a specific time where people could call me, and that was during my breaks. Right. That was during my breaks when I was eating lunch. And that's where I was able to still connect with people and not feel like, am I really, like, is all of this in vain, or am I going to benefit from this, or I'm just feeling down, and sometimes it was, okay, I'm going to schedule out some time to get back motivated and encouragement, whatever that is that you need. So I think that's where you kind of be a little bit more intentional about not letting it become unhealthy. So,
well, yeah, and I think too, something that you mentioned, and maybe it's because we're friends, but I think this applies to anybody, is having a support system that understands your goals and understands your deadlines.
yes.
There were many parked car conversations outside the law school that were not planned, but just like, hey, you want to go get some coffee? Maya was 2 years ahead of me in law school. And so I was just now beginning and she was wrapping up. So a lot of my questions that I had of, oh my God, this seems ridiculous. I had somebody who had already gone down that journey. I was like, no, you can do this, or whatever the case may be. What she's talking about of setting those like times to, okay, I'm going to go to brunch. Okay, I'm going to do that. I think it really helps to fill yourself with supportive people and supportive community that understands, hey, this is what you got going on right now, and is going to rally behind you and push through. The person who's going to bring you the coffee, the person who is going to say, hey, let's go do brunch. And when we go to brunch, we can talk about the fact that we're both on these deadlines, or the fact that you're just on this deadline and I'm here cheering you on and supporting you through it. And so, okay, what do you need from me? How can I help? Do you want to talk about the bar, or do you not want to talk about it?
Right.
Like, which one is it? Like do we need to pray, or do we need to laugh? We gonna spill tea, or we need to go get some tea because it's gonna be a long night? Like, which one is it? And I think that creates that healthy balance, because if you create your deadlines into a god and you become a hermit and you start worshiping those things and you cut everybody off and you don't have time for anything, and all you care about is, oh, I got to get this money, oh, I got to get this bag, oh, I got to get my body snatched. I think you have to ask the question, what's it going to be worth if you don't have anybody to share it with?
Period.
Like, okay, so yeah, you going to Tahiti, but you going by yourself, sis?
Period. That's the only thing that I can say. Period. Literally. Like, I mean, verbatim. Like, and that's, I think and that's that hustle culture. And I think you're kind of going into that. And I hate it with every ounce of me. Like, it's so unrealistic. And it's a difference between putting yourself on a deadline to get direction and to stay focused and to, make sure you're, taking those steps to get in line with the things that you want out of life and your goals. That's completely different from, wake up, hustle, and repeat. Like, that right there is because what you end up doing, and what I've seen so many people doing, is they end up glorifying or idolizing the bag, or or just like the hustle. And I don't want to live a life if it's going to cost me my sleep and my rest and my peace and my love and my friendships and relationships. It's not worth it.
It's not. And I think that's one of the things that people one of the reasons I got off Instagram and social media in general was because a lot of times the feed and literally the timeline will feed you those negative emotions of feeling like you're not doing enough, feeling
Right.
like you are behind, feeling like you are, well, so-and-so's doing this, or I must be off, or something must be wrong with me. Or the opposite of, oh, I'm going to show them, or they going to hate to see this, or, flex and stunt. And it's just kind of like, well, guys, that's great for your, 8,000 followers, but you still sitting at home by yourself.
And look, it's the people that be like, they get something, or they do something, or they're in the process of doing something, and it's like, oh yeah, they finna be mad. Like, who's gonna be mad?
Man,
And
who's
and
they?
and why are you doing it for them to be mad? Like, why is that your motivation?
Because that's not healthy. That is not healthy. That stuff causes cancer, y'all. Oh, feeling like, I have to prove something, or they're going to be so mad, or, don't hit my line unless it's about the money. And it's just like,
Girl,
can I ask you how you doing?
Girl.
Why you need the money so bad?
Girl, and be broke. That's the thing. It don't even be like, well, you know what? We're not going to even get into that.
Okay.
Because look, we can kiki. But okay, let's switch it up, because I think this is also important. How has not having a deadline impacted your life? Because I think we've talked a little bit about having deadlines and the successes of it, and how we've seen our life goals come into fruition by having a deadline. But the flip side of that, in what ways have not having a deadline impacted you?
I think both. I think I've seen positive and negative in it. But I think the biggest thing in that is to be understanding and self-aware of learning how to give yourself grace, right? So there comes a certain freedom with not having a certain deadline, like of, hey, this is something that I want to do, but I don't have to kill myself in order for it to happen.
Right.
Like, hey, I got a lot of other stuff going on. Like, I just graduated from law school. I'm a new associate at a firm. I'm trying to get my bearings. Yeah, I ain't started my business yet. I haven't, done some of my personal goals yet. But I kind of had a lot of other stuff going on, and that's okay. I think that cancel culture, and I know that's not the topic of this podcast, but I think it's something that a lot of people deal with, of just, when something doesn't go your way, or when somebody falls short of the grace that you feel they are owed, you cancel them. Right. And I think a lot of times we see cancel culture within ourselves of, if you haven't accomplished something by a certain time frame, then you just gonna cancel it. You're gonna scratch it off. It's just, oh well, whatever, weight loss journey. Yeah, you've been going hard for the first month, and then you step on the scale and you don't see no results, and you just like, you know what, forget it. That's not healthy.
Right.
Like you have to give yourself some freedom. You got to give yourself some flexibility. You have to give yourself some time, you don't know how that's going to go or how it's going to affect you. At the same point in time, I think not having deadlines opens a big old door of procrastination.
Child, talk about it.
The truth of the matter was, I could have started the business if I wasn't glued to Netflix.
It's the accountability. It's the accountability. And that's something that I have to have them. Like, just, I know my makeup, and I know how I function. I know how I win, and I know what works for me. So I actually have to have deadlines. And I've seen like I said, 2020 was a year of self-reflection to me. And I literally just sat down because I am, I work as a full-time attorney, but I've started businesses and I've struggled with growth. That's my big thing, just growth, because I'm not a salesperson. I've
Right.
never been that way. And it's like trying to figure out how to grow in the age of social media and sell, whether it's a product or your personality or your brand. I've never been able to do that. And it's so crazy because, yes, I do have an MBA, but I'm more of, an owner. I'm more of an investor. Like, that's more my speed. So I struggle a little bit with the marketing piece. And so when I want to be a full-time entrepreneur, and that's a goal of mine, but I struggle with growth. And so for me, when we're talking about not having deadlines and things like that, if I don't put myself on a deadline to whether it's learning marketing, whether it's, finding somebody that can run my digital marketing for me, whatever that looks like, I struggle with taking those steps to getting it done. And versus, I look at the things that I've always had deadlines with. I've had deadlines my entire life. Even as an attorney, my whole profession is centered around deadlines. Court date. Right.
And hold on, wait. Like, I just want to throw this in there because I'm sure a lot of people listening, like, oh, wow, that's so lit. They two attorneys. Y'all, it's a lot of deadlines that you don't set for yourself. All of a sudden, you minding your business on a Sunday night, and all of a sudden you see a motion come up, and you're like, whoa.
Exactly. And that's definitely the profession of law. I would actually say 90% of the deadlines are set by other people. They're not even set by me, whether it's the court, whether it's a partner, whatever the case may be. So I operate every day from deadlines. And so the only things that I've never had deadlines with were relationships, my weight, my business.
Get out of my business, Maya.
No, but listen, like when you think about those things, like and even my job, don't get me wrong, like even my job, I sat down and I really thought about it, and I'm like, okay, this is the first time I'm in a season of my life where things are just indefinite. Like, there's no end date. Like, there's no end date really to me being an attorney, unless I give myself one. But as of right now, there's no end date.
That's so true. That's so true. Because think about it. I hate to interrupt you, but I think we need to flush that out some, because I don't think people really understand. All of your life, it's been on a deadline.
Exactly.
When you are in kindergarten, when kindergarten is going to end and when first grade is going to start. When you matriculate through grade school and you get to college, if you decide to go to college, everything is based on a semester system. So, you got a start date, you got an end date, right. Whether it's an online class and it's open all semester and, I got to knock out all this stuff before the end, or in-person class. And, I've got a midterm, I've got a paper, I've got a final. And so there's this bookend principle that aligns yourself, because you're kind of forced into it. You're forced into this structure, so to speak. And then, college has a little bit more freedom in there, because you can take your time and graduate. You can get a 4-year degree in 3 or in 6. That's totally your business. And I love that about higher education, because it gives, the flexibility for real life to happen. Right. At the same point in time, though, when you come out of that and you're in a profession that says, hey, I really don't, this is indefinite. And then you try to build in some deadlines of feeling like, on one hand, it's just project after project after project. It's motion here. It's, drafting this here, court date here, client here, partner here. And it just feels like a merry-go-round or a hamster wheel, so to speak. And then you have the other projects at work, at least I do, that don't necessarily have a deadline. It's just something that needs to get done, something that we need to do. So it's not urgent.
Exactly.
And still prioritizing things that aren't urgent. And then you look up, for example, for some of our listeners, like when you first file a lawsuit, you have a discovery process. And that's basically when both parties are getting all the information that they need to get from the other one before it's time to start digging into, more deeper details of it. Sometimes in reviewing those things that you get, it's not necessarily urgent. The court hasn't necessarily set a hearing date. They haven't necessarily set a trial date to it yet. It's just kind of sitting. And so it's something kind of passive that needs to get done. Like, it's important, but it's not like, oh, we have this, temporary restraining order and you got this amount of time and you got to hurry up and do it, or we got to respond in 15 days. It's not like that.
Right.
and still having to prioritize and structure, okay, I can't spend all of my day doing this every day to the point to where I look up 4 months later and I never touched that stack of paper that's been in the corner, right? I think that's the same thing that we see in our real life, of I have to go to work every day. I have to, record my time or bill my hours, or I have to eat. There's things that I have to do in order to live. But there's other stuff like losing weight or, reading my Bible or writing a book or whatever the case may be. That's leisure.
It's not urgent. Like
It's
you think that is not urgent, so you kind of neglect it, or you just don't put that energy or that effort that needs to go into it, especially if some of those things are necessary for you to accomplish your life goals. So like for me, a part of my brand is looking a certain way. I want to, and not necessarily to post pictures on Instagram, but, I want to be confident in every aspect, in every way. And so I don't care what anybody says. I love every size, every shade, every inch of how you love yourself. That's fine. But for me, I know how I want to look. So I have to lose weight. Number one, for my self-confidence and, for my health, it's not just a certain look. Yeah, for my health. And then for my mental health, me eating right and exercising and, being active has a direct effect on my mental health. So it's actually a requirement for me. So actually just like seeing the pounds go away, that's just like a plus. But
think about it though, even your health. If I have set these goals for my life, of I want to accomplish this by this time or whatever, I want to live to see it. Exactly. Without like getting into too much details, like it was really scary to be sitting in a hospital in the middle of a pandemic and your doctors are telling you they don't know what's wrong with you. Like, and to feel like, okay, I have worked so hard to get to this place and I've got all of these goals. Am I even going to see it? If I neglect the things that aren't urgent, it is urgent.
Exactly.
Like, what's the point of, setting these goals and these deadlines if you're not going to live them out?
And so that's the whole thing, because I feel like my weight, or just weight, I'm not gonna say mine, but just like weight, a job, starting a business and growing that business and seeing that business through to success, relationships and the amount of time that you're willing to put into them and commit, those things are indefinite, that they don't have a deadline. And so I've seen myself struggle in those areas from not having a deadline, because I'm so used to having deadlines. And I know I've usually had the mindset, okay, if I can just, give it my all for 3 years, if I could just give it my all for 6 months, if I could just give it my all for 2 weeks, I'll get it done. It's like that pay now, play later attitude, which I've always had, but I see myself struggling now as an adult in those areas where I don't have a deadline. And I think if you follow me on Instagram, I will start and stop something in a minute. And that's the thing that I'm really, really trying to master this year, is commitment and consistency, because that's the only thing that's going to help me in those areas that I don't have a deadline. Because I think always having a deadline, I'm so used to starting and stopping. And so I see that a lot in those areas where I don't have a deadline. So with my health, I start and then I stop, and then not because I want to, but just because there's no end date. Like there's no end point. I can't see the end. I don't know what's guaranteed by a certain date. Like when you go to college, okay, 3-4 years, however many years, I'm going to get my degree. If I put in the work, I'm going to get the degree and I'm going to move to the next thing. I'm going to, be able to get the job. When you're losing weight, you can say, hey, okay, I'm going to give myself 4 months to lose 15 pounds. You may or may not see that. You may or may not see that at the end of 4 months. You don't know what it's going to be.
And you know what? And I think that also comes into the fact of where people are setting deadlines is where's your reality in those deadlines? Because if you're looking at somebody who is lying to you on Instagram, selling you some product, but they turned out they really had a weight loss surgery, you know, you will compare yourself and feel like you're failing, right?
Right.
I remember when I first got on my weight loss journey after law school, you know, had joined a gym here in town, and I was going to these classes, I was doing this stuff, and I remember I was so frustrated. And my deadline was, at the time, we were planning a firm retreat. So we were going to go to the beach, you know, firm wide. And I was like, listen, I cannot be on the beach in front of these partners and looking this way. You know, we got to snatch this up. You know, I just want, and it wasn't even a goal of a certain weight. It was me and my coworker, Sammy, shout out to Sammy. I know he listens to the podcast, was, you know, we just want to be.
Sammy. Hey, Sammy. He's an attorney too. I hope to have him on the show soon. But shout out to him.
Yes, but just the idea of, I want to be respectable. I just want to look respectable. You know, I ain't got to necessarily have abs, but I just need to have this gut got to go, right? And then I remember we were, you know, we had gone, so I started this journey in October of 2019. And, you know, I go through the holidays, you know, you kind of go through that little slump, but January rolls around. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get back on it. February, you know, we're fighting through it. I'm looking at okay, I got 2 months and I really haven't seen too much progress. And I remember Sammy telling me one day, he was like, okay, so where did you start and where are you now? And I told him, and he was like, I think you may have an unrealistic expectation attached to your deadline. And I was
Talk
like,
about it. That's the thing.
Ooh.
And people don't like to, I am all about what's realistic and what's unrealistic. However, I think people hear the word unrealistic and they automatically take this like, oh, that's unrealistic for you type attitude, or like, you know, no, I don't care what you say, I'm manifesting, like I'm affirming, I'm doing what I need to do.
Or
And
the
just because
opposite, and they cop out. They say, oh, that's unrealistic, I can't do that.
right. So it's two things. And I don't think you should really shy away from what's realistic and what's unrealistic, because I do think capabilities and life can happen. Like there's nothing wrong with that. You can say all day, you know, I was going to make however much money I want to make in 2020, and then the pandemic hit. You could say I'm going to gain weight in 2020, and then the pandemic hit and you catch COVID and then you lost weight. Like it's things that circumstances can change on when you're talking about what's realistic and what's unrealistic. So that's not to put any type of like that's not to minimize anybody's goals or bless you. That's not to minimize anybody's goals or anything like that. But I do think we have to have some sort of perspective or context, to say the least, when we're talking about these things, because it's not realistic to lose 30 pounds in a week. I don't care how many times you manifest that, it's just not realistic. So you know, and I think when we're talking about businesses and things like that, sometimes we set unrealistic goals for ourselves because we're comparing them to unrealistic things. So like we talk about white privilege, it exists. You know, it's nothing wrong with acknowledging that, but you're trying to compare your income to somebody who was literally given it like that. You know, they were given $1 million, you know, at 22. So now you're trying to say, I want to get $1 million by 22, and you're working your butt off. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a very tangible, realistic goal, but you're comparing it to something that's unrealistic. Like you said, if I'm saying I want to lose weight, I see someone selling something and say, hey, lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. And they've had weight loss surgery, but I'm comparing, you know, my deadline and losing weight in 2 weeks to that. That's not realistic. You know, so I think we have to, every time, I guess sometimes when people say things are not realistic, that's not a dab to your manifestation or your journey or your goals. That's not, you know, so we have to give a little grace when we say those things, because, you know, a lot of people, I hear people say that's unrealistic, and, you know, I see somebody else and be like, no, that's unrealistic to you, like you hate, you know, whatever. And that's not necessarily the case.
You know, that kind of brings a question to me, though, because I think you have a great point. What do we do when the deadline comes and you haven't hit that goal? Like, what if, you know, I wanted to lose 30 pounds by April 1st, and April 1st comes and I've only lost 25?
So this is where grace comes in. And
Mm-hmm.
this is where your makeup and how you think and your perspective comes in, because I do this all the time. And when I talk about deadlines, I get a lot of pushback, and people are like, you shouldn't put a timetable on your life goals. And, you're putting unnecessary pressure on yourself and this. And I'm just like, this is what I need, because this is how I made up. So when I don't accomplish something, so if I give myself a deadline and I don't accomplish it, I don't become emotionally and mentally defeated. And I think a lot of times people, that's kind of where they get that unhealthy thing from, because it's like, oh, I didn't accomplish this, I must not be good enough, and that's kind of where that self-doubt creeps in. But for me, I think of it like this: no matter what the ending looks like, no matter what happens when I get there, progress is progress. So
Stop that. Tweet it. Post it. That's it. That's a word. It's a word. Progress is progress. Like, my God, today, can we make that a postable, a tweetable, or I don't know, or something? That needs to be a thing. Progress is progress.
I came with you.
Like, getting somewhere is somewhere.
Period. So like that, like in your example, when you just talked about you want to lose 30 and you lose 25, sis, you lost 25. Like you're 25 like pounds lighter than you were when you started. Like that, you've accomplished, like, so I think there are no losses. Like that's a win-win. Like you've lost 25 pounds. That's a win, regardless whether you got to 30 or not. And so that's how I think. So and even if I don't lose 25, say I didn't lose a pound, but what I did do was I got up every day and I was disciplined and I was consistent. And now I've built better habits. And now I'm healthier. I'm drinking more water. Skin is popping, clear. I've done those things. So that's still progress. And I think a lot of people underestimate that, or just kind of they underappreciate it. I guess that's the word. And so for me, that's how I look at it. So whether I put a deadline on my things or not, we're talking about deadline. So if I put a deadline on my things and I don't accomplish what I wanted by that certain date, I still celebrate myself in the progression that I've made.
Yes. That is so true. Because I think about an example that comes to mind is when I was studying for the bar. I had a deadline, of course, because there was a test date, automatic deadline, regardless, right?
Right.
So when I started studying, I remember I said, I want to finish 100% of this prep course that I'm doing. It's a class, I've got the books, I've got the material, they've given me a schedule, daily assignments, like, I'm going to just do it. And I was like, I got to hit 100%. I got to hit 100%. And I equated 100% with guaranteed passage, basically.
Yep.
And so what they did not tell me, or what they told me, and I probably just wasn't listening, because I too am guilty of, it may be unrealistic for you, but I'm going to do this, was there going to be some mornings when you wake up and you can't no more. There are going to be some days where, you are stuck on this one subject and it is tearing you up. And so the rest of those things on that list just don't seem to happen.
Hold on. And let me provide context, because if you're not a law student or you're not an attorney, bar prep, the whole process is unrealistic. Like what they have you doing every day, this is not like, oh, I'm going to complete 3 things and then be done. It's like, no, it's actually extremely hard for you to complete the entire thing day by day. Like it's so much work comprised into a short amount of time. And like even the work that you're supposed to do on a day-to-day basis is super tedious. And so I don't want you to think like when she's talking about this, it's like, okay, you couldn't complete that. Like, no, like I would, if I had to guess or assign a number about, as to how many law students or bar prep candidates don't complete this, I would say it's well over like 70 or 80%. Like it's extremely hard to complete 100% of a bar prep course. So I just kind of want to provide context.
3 years in the 10 weeks.
Yes, and you're putting subjects that you may not have even taken in law school in there too. So some of the stuff you're seeing for the first time, and this is like not 3 things or like a few things from each subject. It's the entire subject. Like, so the entire, if we're talking about, criminal law, and you take criminal law in law school, but say we didn't take it in law school, like it's something, and it's on the bar exam, that's the entire thing of criminal law. It's not, you just got to know 5 things. That's the entire area. So a lot of that is, you know, things that you're seeing for the first time, and you're having to maneuver and learn it at a very fast rate. So it's extremely hard to complete 100%. But okay, go ahead. I just
No,
want
no,
to
no,
kind
no.
of.
I love the context, because I think we can use this example and apply it to anything, right? And so I've got 10 weeks. I got to finish this coursework. You know, they've given me a little pretty schedule that's got little check boxes on it of like my 10 tasks that I'm supposed to do every single day. And you think, you know, well, one task shouldn't take that long. And then you get into it and you realize, I don't know what you're talking about. You take a little practice quiz and you fail it. So now you feel completely defeated. You know, all of these things are happening on a regular basis, right? Okay. You build in there, quiet plug, there's this amazing book called The Secret Life of Bar Prep by Maya Moore. Just want to toss that in there. It helped me, it guided me through my bar prep studies. Anyway.
Get y'all some friends that plug y'all. Thank you. So if you're studying for the bar, definitely go grab my book on Amazon. It's super short. You can read it like literally in an hour. I wanted it to be that way because you're already doing a lot for bar prep and studying for the bar exam. So yeah, The Secret Life of Bar Prep by me. But yeah, shout out to you. That was dope. Okay, go ahead.
But it's true though. And in your book though, you talk about, you know, go ahead and schedule in your days of where you're gonna be off. You know, if 4th of July comes in the middle of Memorial Day and 4th of July come in the middle of bar prep, if you're on a typical July bar study program,
right.
That may be different after the pandemic. It may be different if you're studying for the February bar, but holidays are going to come in there. Give yourself a little break, give yourself a little grace, you know, go to Mima's house, get some chicken salad, whatever it is that you normally do on those holidays, right? But still, I got down to the last week of bar prep and I was only at 90%. And I was freaking out. I was like, how am I going to finish 10% of this coursework, which is basically a week's worth of work in 3 days? I'm just not going to do it. And so I ended up finishing the program really, really close to 100. I got 91%. And so even then, though, I remember the bar prep company that I bought my little class with said, if you get to 75%, you're doing good.
Right.
Because they too understand like it's really impossible to try to hit all of this, but you know, we're gonna lay it out and give you a plan and a path to do it. Y'all, I remember having to tell myself that just because I didn't finish the entire bar prep course didn't mean that I wasn't gonna pass the bar. And it didn't. You know?
Period.
So I think there's that grace of I needed that mental health day, you know? I needed to throw the little checklist away and just do what I needed to do to master the material. You know, at this point, you know, it's do or die. It's okay, reviewing these little questions ain't helping me. I need to get some flashcards. I need to write this stuff out. I need to figure out my way on how to do this, right?
But I think, and not to cut you off, but I think that that's such an important point, because when we're talking about you know, not completing things by a deadline, we still have to know the purpose and the impact of having that deadline there. Because had you not had anything, or you know, had you not had anything planned or just kind of on some type of schedule, then your focus wouldn't have been honed in enough to get to the 90%. So I think that deadline gives us the direction and the I guess what word am I looking for? Just like the support or that
The guidance,
right, the guidance that we need to stay the course. And you know, so whether we complete it or not, like you said, you completed 90%, like the average is 75. Like that's progress is progress.
And
right.
I still achieved my goal, right?
Exactly.
And so for people who are, you know, you may be a mom and you may have been out of school for over 10 years and now you're talking about going back. Baby, go. You're not going to come. Like my mom, when she went back to go get her master's degree, she waited until I was 16 and I was old enough to drive and pretty much self-sufficient, right? And yes, she had a full-time job and she was a wife and she was a mom and she was keeping a house together. And so even now, currently, she's studying for her PhD. And, you know, she is working a full-time job at the hospital and coming home and still cooking dinner and then making sure that her assignments are in or whatever. And so it's going to take a little bit more time than the average person, quote unquote, would take. But that's where that grace of giving yourself a deadline is, but you still accomplished something. You still completed the class. You still passed the course. You still did something. And I think a lot of times when people say that putting deadlines on things are unhealthy is because they have a zero-in perspective. Like it's either black or white. It's all or nothing.
Exactly.
either I accomplished it or I didn't. Even if you take the bar and you don't pass, that doesn't mean you're never gonna be a lawyer, babe. Take it again.
Right.
Now you got experience. Now you know what to do. Now you can figure out, okay, probably need to like this program did not work for me, or I thought it was gonna be easy and it turned out not to be.
Child, that's a word. Look, God's speaking to me right now, because when you're talking about starting a business, because that's been my whole struggle with this business. Well, not necessarily starting it, but just kind of being committed and consistent and doing things. I've started several, and I've fit like not seen several through. Don't get me wrong. But where I am now, I have just putting myself on those deadlines, and just whether I completed things by a certain day, whether I grew my business or not, I did it. But what I have now is I know how to do my own website. I know how to file my own papers. I know how to go higher and invest in those areas where I know I'm not good at. I know how to, have good customer service. I know what to pay attention to. I know how to do hashtags on social media. I have gained so much wisdom. So it's not a lost cause, and I have made some, even though I say I'm not a salesperson, I have been able to grow my influence because of the wisdom that I got, failing. And so I think sometimes
experience.
Exactly. Like that's enough in and of itself. And I think sometimes we downplay it. And like you said, when people look at their goals and they put deadlines to them, it's either black or white. You've done nothing if you didn't complete that one thing that you wanted to complete. And so I don't think of it like that. I pay more attention to the journey. And so I look at, okay, I'm 10 days closer to whatever it is I want it to be, from the day that I started. That's progress.
Progress. Because progress is progress.
Right. And that's a win. Like you've gained something, you've learned something. So I think that would be my answer to that. Like back to the question, it's like, what happens when you don't complete those goals? I don't look at that as a bad thing. But like I said, that's my makeup, and I think that really comes down to your perspective and how you view things. So that if that's just a little encouragement for somebody listening, stop looking at it as you've done nothing, or you failed, or you didn't get the house by this date. Like, you got an apartment, like you got a dope apartment, or if you didn't lose weight by this day, or you didn't lose the weight that you want to lose, sis, you toned up now. Like you've built your core strength, you built your muscle strength. You can't take those things for granted, and celebrate yourself. Go celebrate those things, because I think when you celebrate yourself, it'll keep you motivated and encouraged to keep going. So that's my thoughts on that. But okay, I got one more thing, because I think this is something that I think needs to be talked about, because I think there's a very thin line. Because like we've been saying, we say some people feel like the timetables and the deadlines on your life goals, that creates unnecessary pressure on yourself, and that's unhealthy. But I want to talk about whether it's really unnecessary pressure, because my question is it unnecessary pressure, or have you just not allotted in time, or if there's just not time allotted in there for you to procrastinate? And when I say this, I mean, you hear so many people say, oh, I work well under pressure. It's like, no, sis, you just didn't have the time to procrastinate. Like, you just had to get it done. Like, you literally just had to get it done. So what do you think about that? Like, how, I guess your thoughts on whether it's unnecessary pressure and, you're putting yourself on a deadline and it's unhealthy, or just having a deadline and being held accountable for that deadline just not let you have the time in there to procrastinate?
I think it's both. Like, I hate to be that person that says,
no, look, that's every attorney. Maybe not.
Maybe. I don't know. It depends.
Right.
Depends on the circumstances. But no, seriously though, I think that there are times when people say, oh, I work so good under pressure. Yeah, you may have written the best brief of your life because you didn't have a choice but to do it, right?
Exactly.
And so it had to be good. You had to pull out your best. You had to do your stops. But did your blood pressure need that extra amount of stress? You knew about it. You could have planned other things, whatever. I think that all of that goes back to that same principle that we started this podcast with, is whether or not you have the self-awareness and the self-discipline to get it done, right? And so self-awareness would say knowing whether or not you work well under pressure, but also giving yourself the discipline to not have to, or the flexibility,
Child.
to be able to get in there, of, you know, you are in control of your own life, right? You are the captain of your own ship. Okay. And so what that basically means is I get to control how I want to do this. And I have a bad habit of talking about it and planning about it, but not doing it, right? Yeah. And so I can get all the pretty planners and all the journals and the pretty poster board, and I'm like, yes, I'm so excited. This is what I'm going to do. But when it comes down to it, and the day comes where we're supposed to start, you know, having that follow through of doing it when you don't feel like it, doing it when, you know, you want to give up, you know, of being strong and courageous and doing the work. That's out of First Chronicles 28:20, of just something that I've had to really stand.
Come on, scripture. You know I love a good scripture.
You know, of just, you know, God tells us, you know, you got to be strong and you got to be courageous, comma, and do the work. Like, right. You know, faith without works is dead. And a lot of times we put in a lot of faith and a lot of manifesting and a lot of energy and, you know, spend a lot of money even, whether it's in a gym membership or whatever. And then when it comes down time to actually do it and like show up for yourself, you stop yourself before you even get started. And right. I'm preaching to me. I'm really not going off on nobody. Like, this is a me thing.
Nah, you're in my business too. So
girl, you got the outline, you got the plan, you got the deadlines or whatever. And then when it was time for you to start doing it, it didn't creep up on you. You intentionally chose not to. Or you made an excuse, not of, oh, well, I've got this going on, or, oh, I don't feel like it. Oh, my head hurts. And, you know, just no. And I think it comes into that, the pressure of holding yourself accountable is you got to look at yourself in the mirror when you do or don't accomplish this.
Yep.
How you going to feel? How many more times are we going to start over? And there's a grace that says I can start over if it doesn't go the way I wanted it to, right? In my situation with the weight loss thing I was going earlier, a whole pandemic happened. My gym closed. I was at the house, ended up getting sick later throughout the year, really starting over on January, 1, back at where I was when I first started this journey. But I know what I need to do. I know I need to drink my water. I know I need to find a good workout plan. I know I need to find some accountability in a workout that I like. I know I need to, I've got a bad addiction to carbs. I need to probably work on that, whatever. And I think that when we don't allow ourselves the pressure of not procrastinating, you're setting yourself up for failure. Like, sometimes you need to keep your foot on your own neck. If you know you normally cop out, if you know you normally quit, if you know, like, this isn't going to work for me, then you need to go ahead and build in, okay, well, what do I need to do to avoid that? How am I going to rewrite my story? And my Iyanla Van Zantness, how am I going to interrupt the pattern?
Come on now.
But seriously. And then the other side of that is, okay, and even if I don't, what if? Like, what right. if? Like, so a lot of times we sit down and we write these goals, and like I said, I'm gonna just speak from the perspective of, cutting yourself down before you even get there, is we start saying the what ifs. What if I don't? What if I do? What if whatever happens, right? And the answer to your what if question is, okay, even if I don't, I'm still committed to my health. Exactly. Even if I don't, I'm still committed to my education, and I'm still committed to, the 6 figures by a certain time frame is really just a big picture. The truth of the matter was, I want to be financially responsible and secure. So even if I don't, child, even if I don't make that amount of money by a certain time, I learned how to budget. I learned what I needed to do in order to get there. I learned how to live under my means, within my means, whatever. I put different value on certain things of what's really important. Do I need that bag? Do I want that bag? Do I, is it more important to give? Or, well, if I have it and somebody doesn't have it, am I selfish because I didn't hit my goal of having my bank account by a certain way and somebody else needed something? No. Like, just, and giving yourself that grace to say, you know what? I'm not going to give myself an opportunity to opt out, but if an opt out comes up, at least I have evaluated whether or not it is, applicable, whether or not that's real right now.
And that girl, oh child, you just read. You're reading all my mail, because I said everything has always been, when it comes to my life goals, everything has always been some type of tangible, like some type of tangible. Like I wanted, and I still have it, because I'm gonna be a millionaire this year. That's like my new thing. We're taking it from 6 to 7. So there's that. But I think I've always had a tangible goal connected to my deadline. And so this year I wanted to, like you said, instead of having a number attached to your bank account, learning how to be financially responsible. So for me, that was the big thing from as we go into 2021. I have those tangibles, but my main focus and my main goal this year is to master commitment and consistency.
Yes.
And so what that looks like is building habits every day, showing up every day, and when I get up, the first thing I do is thank God for my day, spend time with him, journal, devotion, work out, then I go to work. And then when I get home, I focus on my podcast. I focus on, those things that I want to learn how to do, and, growing and social media. And I focus on those things, but I stopped being dictated by whether I feel like it or not.
Ooh. Because the fact, child,
I love you.
Out of water, my God. Okay, because the truth of the matter is, when 5 a.m. rolls around and it's cold, it's 40-something degrees outside, and it's raining, do I feel like getting up and going to the gym? No.
Exactly.
But it's that consistency. It's that habit of, my daddy has this phrase, short-term pain, long-term benefit, of I'm not going to be wet. I'm not going to be soaking wet. I'm going to get out the house. I'm going to get into the car. I'm going to heat the car up, and then I'm going to drive, and then I'm going to get out the car and go into the gym. It's not like, oh, I got to take a boat to drive all the way from my house to the gym. No.
Right.
It is, okay, am I going to hit snooze? Am I going to beat this habit of being late? Am I going to, am I going to do what I want to do, or am I going to do what I have to do, regardless of how I feel?
Exactly. And that's the thing that I've noticed when it comes to my weight, because there's going to be days I don't feel like it. And I'm not even talking about a rest day. Like, we've already passed the rest day. This is the day that I actually am supposed to do it. And so
yesterday I said today.
Right. So, it's going to be times where I don't feel like it. It's going to be times where I get discouraged and frustrated because my social media posts aren't getting the traction that I want. So I feel like, I'm doing this in vain, or I'm feeling just kind of just discouraged, or whatever the case may be, just unmotivated. So it's like I want to step back from it today. And then especially when you're looking at other people, and that spirit of that thief of comparison comes in, those things can unmotivate you. And it's like, no, regardless of who likes what, regardless of, what I see, regardless of whether I lose weight or not, regardless of whether I am seeing the benefits of the work that I'm putting in, I'm going to just be consistent. So there is no I'm doing this podcast, and if I'm not going to do it anymore, I'm going to skip a week, if it doesn't grow, or if it doesn't get whatever it needs to get. No, a part of me doing this podcast is showing myself that I can be consistent. So it's every week. There is no, we're taking a week off. And I'm not saying that because life can happen, but at the same time, if I got anything to do with it, I'm showing up every day, because I have to learn to be committed and consistent. Because if I can master those things, I know for me, I'll be successful in every other area. I'll meet my tangibles. I'll get to my millions. I'll get to my my social media brand growing. I'll get to my weight loss, goal, whatever that is. And then even with my relationships, because I think God is dealing with me on that too. If I can't be committed, I just can't be consistent, and I can't master that. How am I going to be married?
How am I run up out this door, down the hallway?
But no, listen, I think I'm lazy and I don't want to get up in the morning, and I'm rushing and being late to work every day. How in the world am I gonna get kids ready for school, get them to school on time, and then still get to work on time? If I
Child.
can't,
Well, how about this? When you're in the dating season, I'm gonna just tell my business, and he always waiting on you.
girl,
Like it has gotten to the point to where he waits until he hears me in the car before he gonna meet me there.
yeah.
Oh, just like, and I decided this year, I was like, I'm gonna show up better. I finally got what I prayed for. How am I stewarding it?
Child, I'm finna go.
Okay, I'm just saying, like, God healed me. He delivered me. We figured out what was wrong. I had the surgery. I'm well, no complications. Now what? Are you gonna have the same bad habits? Or are you gonna take care of your body like you only got one of them? You prayed for the man, and now the man here, and you don't appreciate him. You asked for the job, but now you don't want to get up and do the work. You asked for the to be able to be here. I'm just saying, we got to quit complaining about things that we prayed for, and we really have to just be committed to those things. Be as committed to it when you get it as you were when you were asking for it.
I mean, I just feel like it's disrespectful for you to be in my business the way that you are right now. And so
I love you so much.
I love you too. But I do, like, all jokes aside, I do think this is a conversation that needs to be had, because commitment and consistency is such it's a hard concept to grasp. It's a hard, especially when there's no deadline in sight. That's the thing, because it's easy to be committed when you only have to be committed and consistent for a period of time, but it's extremely hard to show up every day and put your all into something and stay committed and consistent when there's no deadline, and when you may not necessarily see the benefits of your commitment and consistency.
Or when the only person looking is you.
That too. When people can't see that you've been commitment and consistent.
Like, seriously, it's easy to be commitment when I know I got to go to work every day. I know somebody's going to be seeing me. I know somebody checking for me. It's easy to be consistent when I got to go to class and attendance is going to be taken. I'm talking about it's just you.
So when there's, because that's interesting. That's an interesting take. So the being committed and consistent when you're having to be held, or when you're being held accountable. Yes. So when there's no accountability, can you still be committed and consistent?
But isn't that what integrity is? It's what you do when nobody else is looking. So that's it's great that you're getting up and you can show up when you got to be there at a certain time, when you got to punch a clock. But when you get the salaried position, when you go up in your income, and now it don't really matter when you do the work, as long as you do the work, are you still going to have that same level of consistency and commitment and dedication? It's great to, I got to go in and do these modules. I have to do this work. I have to do whatever. But babe, ain't nobody checking for you.
Yeah.
Like, that's that character training, right? Like, if I want to be, like you said, I want to be a millionaire. So I got to build the character of a millionaire now.
Exactly.
Before I get there.
Exactly. How am I stewarding the six figures? Can I handle being a millionaire? Have I built habits that are going to, because I think you can, if you haven't built those habits, you can get it and then lose it, so that's the thing. It's like, have you built the necessary habits, or have you prepared yourself to keep it when you do get it? And so,
are you sustainable?
Right.
Or are you just a check mark? Yeah, I did it, but okay, for a prime example, probably a little too personal, but yeah, I lost the weight for that amount of time, but did I keep it off?
Look, that's what we talked about earlier when I said I saw 158 and I haven't seen it since. Period. Because don't get me wrong, I came back home to my city and I went to law school, and of course I gained some weight in law school, and then as an attorney, but now I'm getting back down, and I've lost. I got back up to like 180, 186, and now I'm 165-ish. So I'm working on it, but I think that is interesting that you said that, because sustainability. Like, if you haven't built those habits and you haven't mastered commitment and consistency, you're not going to be sustainable. So I think God is definitely dealing with me about that in this season. And so, like I say, even though I do have my tangibles, this is my focus this year, just commitment and consistency, because I think, especially with having a business, a lot of businesses fail. I posted it like the other day. I think I reposted it. Not due to a lack of desire, but from a lack of commitment. And I think that's so true. And it's a lot of life's lessons is really about whether you can stay the course or not. That's really what a lot of it boils down to. And so we're gonna wrap it up because I feel like we've been talking for a minute, but I do think that with when it comes to deadlines, I back to my original question, whether I think that's unhealthy or healthy, and based on our conversation today, I think it's really just it comes down to self-reflection and just who you are, what you want, and what you're willing to do, and allowing yourself grace through the process. So I'm definitely excited to have you on. I'll be having you on again, so because these are the conversations that I love to have. And so thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I try to give people one a minute to say just like a final thought. If you just want to leave some encouragement or just something that you want to leave people with, you can go ahead and do that.
Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I enjoyed it. It really didn't even feel like a podcast. It feel like me and my best friend just catching up and talking about what we always talk about. My final thought would be, whatever it is that you center yourself with, for me, is God. But whatever that thing is that holds you accountable, remember that the ultimate accountability is going to be what you did with what he gave you, right? And so for me, the scripture I stand on is Luke 8:48, 10:48, I'm sorry, to whom much is given, more is required. And, if you are the parable of the man with the talents, of God gave you these talents, he gave you these abilities, he gave you these ideas, what are you going to do with them? And, really to have that opportunity to say, okay, when all of this is over, when it's all said and done, I want to say that I left here empty. I did everything that you told me to do. I used everything that you told me, that you gave me to use. And even if I didn't make myself proud, I know I made you proud.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you share this, rate, review, so other people can find the podcast. And make sure you check out the website, www.norulesjustvibes.com, and subscribe to the podcast. We have so many new things coming. Stay tuned for updates, merch, special promotions. So all of that will be there. But thank you guys for tuning in to another week of the show. And I hope you have a great week. And I will see you guys in a week. So bye.